So I want to do this more in-depth video about Unitarian Universalism. So it is technically classified as a Christian religion. However, over the last 50 years, since the fusion of Universalism and Unitarianism combining together, it's since 1967, has become a open church, meaning anybody could come. You don't have to be Christian in order to be a Unitarian Universalist. You could be an atheist, Jewish person, Muslim, Hindu, Buddhist, whatever. You could be whatever religious or non-religious background, and you could be a Universalist. So when people normally hear the term Unitarian Universalist, people are confused by the title because it's not clear on what it is from a person who may not be a Unitarian Universalist. They will have no idea the concept of what Unitarian Universalism is. So, let's unpack what these two separate things are. Unitarianism, the Unitarian Christian religion, the Unitarian Christian religion is mainly focusing on less of the Bible and more on humanitarian ways people could use Christianity in order to fulfill the betterment of society while living in the means of the words of Jesus. While universalism is quite different, where the purpose is not the Bible, but it's viewing God as the prime motivator, but every action, every good action, charity or whatever, that we do in this life brings someone closer to the gates of heaven. Meaning that when they die, that they'll be met at the pearly gates of heaven, and they'll have a good track record of things that they did because for human reason. Now, 1967 or 68, the religions combined together, and since then, over the 50 years since it became an open churches, I should say, meeting places, as I like to call it. Well, I'm explaining this. It technically is categorized as a religion, but most UUs have a different perspective on what Unitarian Universalism is. For me, it's not really a religion, even though, yes, there is a principles and principles to follow. It's not like the Ten Commandments. It's not like thou shalt not have any gods before me. It's not like that. And most Unitarian Universalists come from all different religious and non-religious backgrounds. For example, before I was an atheist, I was a Protestant. I used to go to a United Methodist church. And then when I lost my religion, I was so fed up with organized religion, I thought that as a naturally spiritual person, that even though I didn't lost my faith in God, I didn't lose my faith in humanity. I didn't lose my faith in the goodness that people can show. Well, yeah. Well, see, that's the thing. With Unitarian Universalism, you don't have to be a Christian. You could be an atheist that came from a Christian background. You could be an atheist that came from a Muslim or Jewish background, and people are widely accepted. And I was watching a Unitarian Universalist sermon called "Why Do Atheists Come to Church?" It was like answering the question, and it's from All Souls Unitarian. I thought you use are more. Yeah, pretty much most Unitarian Universalists that come from all different backgrounds are pretty much humanist, really. It's fairly liberal leaning. It's fairly liberal leaning. It's most people that are Unitarian Universalists are either centrist, liberals, libertarians, conservative, but have a humanitarian, left-leaning view of the world. And the thing, though, is it and the thing about the sermon, though, that was interesting was that this pastor, because this person is religious, this particular Unitarian leader is religious, but he was explaining from the atheists and the agnostics he learned to avoid the fairy tales and avoid the corruption of the metaphors in the Bible, to avoid the, to avoid the creationism arguments, and talk about genuine scientific studies that explain the world, and not to use religion as a cop out, essentially, to view the world. And that's why he said he learned from the atheists and the agnostics. And I kind of agree with humanists, but I think myself as an atheist, I just never talk about it only when my family was. Well, yeah, I can understand I wanted to talk about it, but I think anybody that is kind of compassionate in the world is a humanist. But but uh, but he also mentioned something in this sermon, which is something I do agree with. From the people from the theist, he's learned that you could take the metaphors from all religious books and use them in a humanitarian way, and use these metaphors to pick the good things. And I do agree with that. I'm an ex-Christian, I'm an ex-Protestant, and yet I still refer to the words of Jesus, Sermon on the Mount, to to pick the right choices in life, to help people, and not, wallow in greed and pride, because I'm humans being prideful about ourselves is unavoidable, but having too much pride in yourself is a lot, because the only and here's something interesting. You could tell how much someone has some pride in themselves is if they look in the bathroom mirror every hour and every minute of the day. I only look in the bathroom mirror brushing my teeth, combing my hair, and that's it. Other than that, I don't look in the mirror that much. there's an increasing popular number of people who avoid talking about religion in their family circle or friend circles because it is so became such a divisive thing. Like at one time, this is not even that long, like 60 years ago, uh, you could live in a small suburb or a big city and have neighbors of all religious backgrounds. I could only talk about from family stories. A lot of my family members who grew up during the 60s, um, their neighbors were Jewish, their neighbors were Catholic, you know, and there was no problem. Everybody lived peacefully and in a harmonious way 60 years ago. But come today, if God forbid, someone is Jewish and they live in a Christian neighborhood in a small town, you know, you have people that are like Jews this, Jews that. But 60 years ago, if someone tried to be anti-Semitic towards Jewish people, you would have the Christian neighbors, out with baseball bats ready to beat the shit out of somebody. You know, um, but now anti-Semitism is more acceptable in today's society than ever before, which is really scary. And an interesting thing, though, I was watching a video. I forget who the YouTuber was. No, it was a Kyle Kalinske video, but it was this comment came out of nowhere. But it was on the top. Kyle Kalinske was talking about how Jay Tapper did an incorrect fact check on Medicare for All, and this there was what there was a particular moment where Jay Tapper was doing like a incorrect fact check on Medicare for All, and it was so incorrect that a Bernie Sanders video clip was mentioned at Jay Tapper's fact checking video, but the Koch brothers hate Donald Trump to the point where they funded research into what Medicare for All is through and through, a full-on study. And the Koch brothers even came up with the same conclusion everyone who is on board with Medicare for All, which is most of America, came up with the same conclusion. It would save the American people trillions of dollars. This is the Koch brothers we're talking about. The Koch brothers are all for Medicare for All. This says something. And Jay Tapper's like, this is a bad thing. And then he's going into this whole, moronic spiel about anti-Medicare for All and why it's metaphorical and why it can't happen. He doesn't say those words, but everyone gets what he's saying because it's the most downvoted CNN video on YouTube that says something. So, yeah. So anyway, one of the comments, I was browsing through the comments, and some person said tax the churches. And I said, bad idea. Look at England's history. When you tax the churches, you allow the church to have a say in the politics of the country, which is just a genuine truth. Because I would always say, tax the churches, tax the churches. Then I did my research and I put two and two together, and I'm thinking, oh shit, this is not a good idea. Because when you tax the churches, you're allowing this loophole for the churches to have a say in what happens in the state, and the state then has a say in what the churches get to teach. And it's not a good idea to tax the churches. It really isn't. And so someone then said, because of all the cases of pedophile priests, we should outlaw Christianity. And this comment really pissed me off. And I said, most Christians are good people. Most Christians are good and decent people who are just as fed up with these priests molesting children. And so if you outlaw Christianity, you are acting like a genuine fascist. You're basically telling Christians, you have no right to believe what you want, so I'm going to take your religion away from you. I'm going to take your faith away from you. And that's a prideful motherfucker there. That's a prideful motherfucker there. When you have this person saying unapologetically, outlaw Christianity, taking away somebody's faith because pedophile priests are being captured by the cops makes that person act and talk like a genuine fascist. Can you imagine if rabbis were being captured for child molestation? And can you imagine if someone said outlaw Judaism? There would be cries of anti-Semitism. People would say that's anti-Semitic, right? Yeah, they would, because you can't tell Jewish people that they can't practice their religion. But yet, the same thing goes with Christianity. You can't tell Christians they can't practice Christianity. You can't outlaw Christianity. You can't outlaw Judaism. You can't outlaw Islam. People have the right to what they want to worship in this country. I don't care what it is. As long as it doesn't harm anybody, I'm fine with people being Muslims, Christians, Jewish, Hindus, Buddhists, whatever. I'm fine with any religion that doesn't harm anybody in the extreme way. And I'm more worried about the people than I am the actual religion. Because who gets caught for molesting children? Does Christianity get caught? No, because Christianity is an ideology. It's not a person. It's the priests that get caught. It's some of them anyway. Some of these priests are getting caught for molesting children. It's not the religion itself. It's like Islam. Who's killing people? Radical Muslims. Is Islam itself killing people? No, it's an ideology. So this is what makes me so mad when people want to try to outlaw other religions because people believe in this and that. Personally, as a non-believer, I don't care what someone believes. It's not affecting me. If someone believes in God or whatever God they believe in, because let's say they're a nurse or they're a doctor or they had so much family tragedy that they can cope with it, that they need to feel like there's something higher above them in order to cope with the down moments in life that they had or down moments in life they have. You know what? That's fine with me. There was an interesting conversation we had at my one of my meetings at my Unitarian Universalist gathering place. We were reading a book by Margaret Atwood called Oryx and Crake. Oryx and Crake, the first book anyway, is really good because it has a lot of religious metaphors in there, and it has a lot of because being the atheist I was at the time and still am, I was reading into a lot about what goes into the beliefs behind religions and all that. So I caught a lot of the metaphors and all that. And it's really a great sci-fi book mixed with religious mysteries in it. It really is. It's a really good book. It's as good as the Left Behind book. It was in Pennsylvania, but I have no idea where it was. But anyway, we were talking about morals. And I still agree with what I said before. You don't need to be religious to know what's good and what's evil. But what's good and what's evil to us is different in the world. Like I made a mention that when we say in the Western world, that being a good chunk of Europe to the United States, Mexico, and Canada, that if you tell that if you murder somebody, you can go to jail because that's morally wrong. But in the Middle East, though, in the eastern part of the world, more specifically in the Middle East, murdering somebody is seen as morally good if they commit a crime. It's not seen as a crime to kill someone if they committed a crime. Because that's the funny thing. Morals are subjective in the world. And when people say there's no objective morals, that's true. There's no objective morals. You could say good and evil is objective, true, but morals are subjective. What's morally good and bad to us in the United States, it could be completely reversed in other parts of the world. And so this is what I find interesting about morals and the philosophical conversation about it. This is why I don't disregard Dennis Prager's video, what he did on the moral barometer of non-believers, even though he was wrong with it at least 75% of the time. He was correct 25% of the time in the video. And where he was correct, where a lot of people were losing their shit, was he was talking about morals, but yet he did say a truth, though. He was using the metaphor, if there was no God, then murder isn't wrong. But yet, in other parts of the world, murder isn't wrong. Murder's legal. Murder's morally right. So he is correct there. But 75% of the time, Alice is wrong. He's like saying atheists need a religion in order to be morally good, which is not the case. And someone did one of my favorite response videos. They took all the arguments Christopher Hitchens made against arguments like this, and they complied them in this Hitch slapping video. And it was Christopher Hitchens basically beating the shit out of Dennis Prager from the dead, essentially. And I love that video. The book was interesting. It's actually my favorite book by Margaret Atwood. I tried getting into The Handmaid's Tale, but it really didn't interest me. Like, I got chapter 1 is at least 23 pages long. And I got to page 19, and I was like, this book's not grabbing me. I tried to get into the second Oryx and Crake book. It's completely different from the first, but it expands where the first book ended. It wasn't my favorite. It quite bored me. I did read the book, but it did bore me. But I really loved the first one. I pointed out that there was a religious metaphor to Islam in the book. One of the people in the book club is Christian, and she's like devoutly Christian. She goes to regular church and a UU gathering place at the same time. And I mentioned that in the book that there's a metaphor to the Islamic culture in there, and she didn't even take notice. And where she did mention that what I mentioned was that Oryx and Crake. But there's a metaphor towards the end, and actually in the book with the female character. Her face is never seen. And in Islam, most women's faces are never seen. And I caught that right away. I caught that right away. And I knew this was a metaphor to, practices in the Middle East and, Islam in general. And I pointed that out at our, one of our meetings that, this is a metaphor to Islam because women's faces are never seen in that part of the world. And she's like, "Oh, I never knew that." And that's what I like about being a Unitarian Universalist. You learn from other people different perspectives. It was Rod Serling and the Twilight Zone. And each episode of the Twilight Zone that Rod Serling wrote has a Unitarian Universalist message in it. And no wonder why I always liked the Twilight Zone, because there was just something about Rod Serling's writing that I could relate to. And maybe I've always been a Unitarian Universalist, but didn't know it. But yet I was raised Christian. I didn't even I was raised Christian in the church. Like, most of my family was believed. I like most of my family believed, but didn't go to church. But yet, after 9/11, of course, I was brought to church because I had to get religion after 9/11. I was 7 years old. I didn't think about church 6 years before. And, so I technically was born an atheist, then, raised Christian in the church. But still, though, I'm a naturally spiritual person. So there's just something about the Twilight Zone I always liked because of Rod Serling's writing. And what was I gonna say? Oh yeah. But yet it's interesting because you learn different perspectives from people from the Unitarian Universalist angle. I did read a Reddit blog for Unitarian Universalist where a Muslim woman who's practices Islam and is a Unitarian Universalist talked about why she likes the hijab. And I'm thinking most women, in my brain anyway, most women don't like to cover up. They don't like to, shield their body. But it turns out this woman particularly likes to wear the hijab because her body is a sacred temple to God. So therefore, if she exposes it, she feels guilty. Now, to me, this is not a way to really believe in God if somebody does, but yet to her, this is how she believes. And yet, I disagree with the way she views belief in God, but hell, if she's not hurting anybody, I don't see the issue. But yet, isn't giving women the right to live their life the way they want to live it, you know, the right for them to do whatever they want with their life without being told what to do? Well, you know, and so I can understand half of the Islamic world not liking the hijab, but I understand the other half that likes to wear it. You know, it's all down to personal. Yeah, I personally find it silly as well, but however, there are Muslim women who wear it for the reason that it brings them closer to God or whatever, or Allah, as they say it. But whatever, they're not hurting anybody. Yeah, once again, I see it as oppression as well. But look, they don't, though. There are women in the Middle East, half of the Middle Eastern culture doesn't see it as oppression. And half of them do. I agree with the half that see it as oppression. I really see it as oppression, but there are women who are fine with it. I don't know why, but they are. You know, they have their spiritual and faith reasons why they like to do it. And fine, that's how someone feels. You really can't do anything about it. But yeah. But there are parts of religion that I don't like, and I do call them out. I do call out the extreme, the extreme hypocritical priest and all that. I do call out the pedophile priest, definitely. I do call out the people who are so fundamental that think anyone that doesn't believe like they do are going to go to hell, blah, blah, blah. And I did watch videos by people who believe in God, maybe not the biblical God, but they do believe in an energy higher than themselves, where they were talking about how they don't like religion, but they do believe in a God because they just can't conceive an idea of the world where it just came from nothing. They have to believe that something higher than them created the universe, created life on Earth. And I understand the argument. And I understand their argument. I do. Because, as a naturally spiritual person, I see dark matter as a higher energy. Because um, no matter how much scientists, religious or not, try to study dark matter, this invisible black mass in between the spaces that we all feel, no one can study it. No one can examine it. So, is there something about dark matter that creates life on Earth solely alone and doesn't give life to other planets? I don't know. And that's where the agnostic side of me is like, maybe there's something, but the other half of me says there isn't anything. So, this is why I'm an agnostic atheist. Really? I just say atheist, but there's an agnostic part of me where there's like, maybe there's something, I don't know, but I'm not going to completely dismiss it, you know? But this is where the spiritual side of me comes in saying, you know what? You're here. You're here. Live life to the fullest. Help those in need. Enjoy your life because this is the only life you get. But yet, maybe there's something, maybe the soul is reborn somewhere else. Maybe the soul is reincarnated. That's another thing I'm seeing scientific evidence of, which is freaking. There was this kid who was terrified of water, absolutely terrified of water. And it turns out he went to a psychologist and he was talking about the fact that he was on one of the USS Arizona when Pearl Harbor happened. And yet, he was afraid of fire as well. Water and fire terrified him. And so he said the name of the person he was before, and they contacted the sister and mother of this soldier that died in the USS Arizona, and they confirmed everything this kid said. They confirmed everything. And this family confirmed everything, and they accept this child as the reincarnated brother slash son that they lost in World War II. And then he threw a wreath on the memorial of the USS Arizona, or what's left of it anyway, because it's corroding away. Yeah, and then ever since then, his fear of fire and water went away. But he had those vivid memories, and this was like a kid at fucking 3 years old, like talking about these specific events of what happened on the ship when Pearl Harbor happened. And I'm somewhat convinced that reincarnation happens because there are just specific people that give too much specific detail that nobody else but a particular person in a family would know about. So I'm convinced somewhat that it's real because there's just more than one coincidental case of reincarnation. What types of people attend your UU meetings? I'm really interested. A huge part of me wants to go exploring. I want to be a part of the types of people that attend tend to be more spiritual or traditionally religious people that tend to be open-minded, more liberal than conservative. But they tend to be open-minded. They tend to be, all accepting of whatever type of person you are. Doesn't matter what it is. You could be gay, straight, bisexual, non-binary, or whatever. You could come from all religious backgrounds. Mainly, a lot of the people that come to mind predominantly come from a Christian background. Come from Christian background, but on occasion, somebody from a Jewish background or a Muslim background will come to the services or do presentations. And yeah, so that's mainly older people. Some younger people come, but mainly I'm the youngest. Well, no, children do come to these things, but out of the adults, I'm probably the youngest that go there. But yeah, they haven't been there in a long time, so maybe there's more people around my age there at that point. By the way, do you keep these live streams? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. But stuff like this, I'll leave up because there is an interest in Unitarian Universalism, and it is a fast-growing religion in America. And I put religion in quotations because it's depending on how you see it. I don't see it as a religion. I see it as a philosophy. I see it as a way of life. I don't see it as a religion. I don't see it as a doctrination. Because it doesn't have a holy book. It doesn't have this. But instead of this, it doesn't have that you would expect from an organized religion. So I don't see it as a religion, but other people do. But I will say, if anything, I could call it a faith, but I wouldn't call it a religion. Well, that's great. They found a group that shares the same common interest. Well, see, that's the beauty about Unitarian Universalism. You go there as your whole person, as your whole self, with your flaws, with the things that you like about yourself, the things you don't like about yourself, and then just over time, it's really an open discussion. It really is. It's there's a lot of insights that you hear at these things that have really struck me profound. For example, I remember one sermon the Reverend before that the Reverend that The reverend that I had before, he retired because his wife passed away and he wants to spend time with more family. And I understand that. Um, but he said one day I'm going to be at the podium. And you know what? Funny thing is, I don't doubt what he says. I'll tell you why. Because I like to talk to people. I like to do stuff like this. I have concerns about life and I can find the right words to put in a sentence. And this is why music is big to me, because music I can convey into how I feel. And maybe I would do something like a music version of a speaking sermon. My mom's a UU as well. I mean, it's not a secret. It isn't a secret in my family. But yet, I'm a genuine UUA. I'm a genuine universalist atheist. I don't believe in God, but I do have a spirituality in people. I do have a spirituality in humanity. But yet, sometimes I will say, but I'm not afraid to throw out the possibility of there being a higher power. I just don't think, if there is a higher power, I don't think it's the God of the Bible. I do think it's the mysterious dark matter. But yet, I'm not afraid to use God as a metaphor, because there are just some things in science we can never explain. And dark matter is one of those things. No matter how many times they try to study it, you can't capture dark matter. You can't capture dark matter. No matter how many times people have tried, you can't do it. It's impossible. But yet, I do think that we are all dust. We are all, energy, reincarnation, fact about life, because there's just too many coincidental events that changed my opinion on it. Because if you believe in reincarnation in 2014, I would laugh and say, no, that can't happen. But I've read so many convincing cases where, family members of the deceased loved one only knew what this person was saying and nobody else could confirm it except for them. And I'm thinking, okay, maybe this shit actually does happen. But yet, I don't know. I'm just living my life one day at a time, and I'm living it, in solace, And this is why when I discuss things, and this is, I come from a genuine place. I come from a genuine, honest place. I don't bullshit people. At least I don't try to bullshit people. But in general, I don't bullshit. I'm honest. I'm out there and honest. I'm unapologetic about who I am, about my politics and whatever. And yeah. So anyway, damn, I need coffee. I have a whole night planned of TV to watch. There's a special on CBS right now that's recording. 3 technically. Jeff Dunham, the mind behind the puppets. There's also Betty White, the first lady of television, and Carpool Karaoke, the scenes that you didn't see, featuring Paul McCartney. Interesting. There's just there is this huge there's this like convention, this Unitarian Universalist convention every year. I believe it's in Chicago as well. I could be wrong, but it's held in any state really, but that has a big arena. But but it's filled with all Unitarian Universalists from all parts of the world and all parts of the United States, of all backgrounds. And I really want to go to one of these weekends and just meet other people, because the being a Unitarian Universalist in Schuylkill County is like a very small number of people, but yet we share a building with the Jewish synagogue as well. And yet I do want to go to Jewish temple service, even though I wasn't raised Jewish, because there's just something about the Jewish faith that resonates with me. Mainly about the fact that what makes life what makes life worth living is the fact that there is suffering in the world, and before suffering happens to you or to anybody you know, it's better to live life with happiness and joy, without sadness and without anxiety. There's just something about that part of Judaism I agree with. But yeah, so anyway, hope you enjoyed the stream. See you next time. And yeah, I decided to talk about this topic again because there's a growing interest in it, and might as well give my 2 cents in on it. See you guys next time.